Hi everyone, here we go with the second part of the Ice Palace. If you're in Willow class, it would be really good to hear how you're getting on with your Egyptians topic project. Just send me anything you've got, it would be really nice to hear from you and see how you're getting on. Thanks. Alright, page 18 for those following along in the text. On and on he went, and when it began to grow dark, he found a snowdrift and tunneled into it, as his father had taught him. Outside, the screaming wind drove blizzards of snow across the darkness, but Ivan slept safe and warm in his shelter. When morning came, he dug himself out, ate a little food from his pocket, and looked all around. His footprints were gone, and the wind had shifted so the snow drifts into a new pattern, so that he could not tell which way he had come. He sighed, turned his face into the wind, and walked on. The snow was deeper now, and Ivan's feet sank far beneath its surface with every step. He began to feel tired, and to wonder if he would ever see his home again. He was thinking longingly about his chair by the big, hot stove, when there came a sound that felt like an icicle in his heart. It was a long, thin cry a hungry wolf makes when it scents its prey. The cry was answered by another, and soon the pine wood echoed with the howls of the hunting pack. Ivan tried to go faster, but the snow sucked at his boots, making him stumble. He looked back, sobbing. His footprints wound away between the trees, and somewhere back there, he knew, the wolves were running in his tracks with their noses down to smell him out. A tree. He must find a tree to climb. Wolves can outrun any living thing, but they cannot climb trees. He stumbled on, looking wildly around him, but the trees just here were all pines with smooth, icy trunks. The wolf cries drew nearer. He looked back. Dim shapes moved in the dark beneath the trees. He plunged forward, gasping. They had seen him now. A few seconds more, and they would be upon him. He glanced all about and ploughed through the snow, the wolves at his heels. He leapt. His hands closed around the lowest branch, and he swung his legs clear of the ground as the first wolf lunged in a flurry of snow. Painfully, Ivan hauled himself up into the ice-lacquered branches and sat, gazing down. The wolves milled, snarling, around the foot of the tree. Their slavering jaws were upturned, and their breath rose in plumes around him. Now and then a wolf would leap, its jaws snapping within inches of his feet. Soon, Ivan began to feel cold. The wind whipped through the bare branches, and his dangling legs became numb. Soon he knew the frost would be in his fingers. It would spread through his hands until they could no longer grip, and he would fall into that whirling mass of fur and fangs. "Go away!" he cried. "Oh, go away and find something else to kill!" But the wolves gazed at him with their cruel eyes, and their jaws seemed to grin. "They know," sobbed Ivan. "They know that I am freezing. They are waiting for me to fall." He clung desperately to his perch. The cold began to seep through his hands. He cried softly, and the tears froze on his cheeks. "Farewell, little brother," he whispered. "I can never save you now." His eyes felt heavy, and his head sank slowly until his chin rested on his chest. He was going to sleep. The cold was going away. He smiled a little. He had only to let go now, and he could sleep and sleep until the end of the world. A startled yelp roused him. He shook his head and looked down. The wolves were scattering in all directions, and in their midst, rearing on its hind legs, was a huge bear. Its terrible claws hissed through the air, and the wolves fell back, snapping. The bear lunged at them, and they turned tail, slipping away between the frozen trees. Ivan cried out joyfully, then gaped with horror. Bears kill people, and bears can climb. He pulled up his feet, trying to move higher. The bear dropped onto all its 4 feet and stood a moment, snarling into the forest. Then, with only an upward glance at the boy, it loped off, melting soon among the shadows of the pines. Ivan stiffly climbed down. He peered fearfully all around, but the wolves were gone, and there was no sign of the bear. All that day, little Ivan walked on. Now and then he would break off a little of the bread in his pocket and chew it as he walked, and when it began to grow dark, he found another snowdrift and made a cave inside it. He ate more of the bread and snuggled down to sleep. At midnight he awoke, and it seemed to him that he had heard a voice. He listened. Outside the wind was howling. After a moment he closed his eyes again. It must have been the wind, he said to himself. Only the wind. But no sooner had he closed his eyes than he seemed to hear the voice again. He got up, knelt by the hole, and stuck his head out. The cold made him gasp. Ivan screwed up his eyes and peered into the darkness. There was nothing, only the tossing of the pines and clouds of wind-blown snow. Then, just as he was about to draw his head back inside, he thought he saw a movement under the trees. A small figure flitting across a paler patch between the shadows. Ivan cried out, clambering from the snowdrift. The figure, it seemed impossible, but from here it had looked like... "Little brother," he cried, "wait!" He was stumbling through deep snow. As he drew near, the small figure seemed to move back, so that he was always the same distance away from it. "Wait!" he cried again. "Oh, don't run away!" "It is Ivan. It is Ivan! Come to take you home!" But the figure was only a smudge now, a shadow in the shadows, and as he watched it faded and was gone, and he heard laughter in the wind and whirled around, but no one was there. The cold was like knives in his feet, and he looked down at himself through his tears. "My boots!" he gasped. "I left them in the snowdrift, and my mittens too." He turned. "I must go back at once, or I will die." He knew now that the figure in the trees had been Starjik's cruel trick, and the laughter in the wind Starjik's laughter. But when he looked around, he could not tell which way he had come. He ran, first this way, then that, stumbling in the snow, but no way seemed to be the right way. The voice laughed more loudly in the wind. There we go. We'll leave it there for today. See you tomorrow.